There have been several times since Musk took Twitter over that people have said, oh, now we got to go to this other site, whether it was Threads or Mastodon. Now BlueSky is hot. And it's hard to sustain that heat when there are so many choices. But it's always interesting for me, both as a user of social media, but as someone who covers this, to sort of check it out. And I must say, I'm seeing more pin action over on BlueSky than I have in the past.
Hey, Scott, how are you?
I'm well, Michael. Hello. Good to see
It,
you.
it's been an interesting couple weeks. Uh, so one of the things that's been interesting is at the usual post-presidential election stock market bump. And we've seen it all the way across the board, but tech stocks have been doing really well. But one's been doing better than all the rest. Amazon, because Amazon not only is taking advantage of this bump, but it's also decided to go after Temu. Now, you can't help noticing Temu wherever you go. There's ads on every web page selling this most diverse collection of stuff, apparently cheap. Uh, and I mean that in both senses of the term. I've seen a few sites where people show what they actually got from Temu compared to the photograph, but it's a big deal. It's PDD Holdings, and it's from China, and they're making tons of money, and Amazon can't have that. So Amazon has just announced Amazon Haul, which will be HAUL, which be basically their version of Temu for items priced under $20, with half of them selling under $10. And I guess the crucial thing is you're not going to get it overnight like you get, that item from Amazon Prime. It's going to be a week or two, but uh, it's probably going to be better quality. We'll see. But I mean, what do you think? I mean, I think it's a smart move in one respect because Amazon just can't let corners of the market grow into billions of dollars without taking it on.
Right. And
So
every time Amazon takes on a new industry, the company that led that industry sees its stock fall. Amazon also did this with the sort of pill delivery, male pattern baldness type medicine. And we saw Hims and Hers fall based on the fact that Amazon got into their business. Amazon is soaring. You were right. It's top $2 trillion. And getting back to your original point about the election, and usually an election happens and we see certain areas do well, whether healthcare or defense, based on what we think the new president will come in and do. And I would say tech is taking off. There is this sort of sense of there will be less regulation and all that, but also there's the Elon Musk factor here. I mean, Tesla stock has just soared since the election as
right.
people think he'll be able to do what he wants under a Trump administration. So really the focus is on tech even more than any other area that usually moves after an election. And this is really one where I think tech, especially the tech billionaires, helped move Trump back into the White House.
Yeah, but I'm sort of surprised because one of the things Trump has said is that he wants to get rid of the CHIPS Act. I
Right.
thought that
Which
was benefiting the tech industry, especially semiconductor companies.
very much so. And Tesla needs chips. And I think, much like what Trump said about TikTok, I think what he says about the CHIPS Act may switch because of dollars and influence that some of these VCs and tech CEOs clearly have over him.
Yeah, and we've got to move semiconductors back onshore. The supply chains are just at too much risk, especially through China. I mean, if they don't move it here, we face losing it all. So that and all the way down the pyramid, the food pyramid in technology, if we lose control of the chip industry. So I think he might have a change of heart.
He
Okay,
might.
well, let's go another thing on Trump. I don't want to spend any time on particularly on this, but remember when he went and talked to the cryptocurrency convention? And I remember thinking, what the hell is he doing there with those renegades? Well, all of a sudden, the crypto industry, especially with Elon Musk in the government now, They're talking, some predictors are suggesting that, first of all, Congress may address now legislation regarding cryptocurrency, and that Bitcoin, which is already on a hell of a run, could reach $500,000 per coin. Now, I don't know about that, and as you say, it's frothy. But if the Congress gets involved, it could become a lot less frothy.
Well, one thing that was really interesting as election night happened and it got late and we could sort of tell that Trump was going to win, and then into the next morning, there was concern. Okay, whoa, Trump is back in the White House. What does that mean? Obviously, he brings a certain amount of uncertainty to the financial markets, but gold fell, usually the safe haven. Gold fell, stocks soared, and Bitcoin went up to nearly $90,000. It eventually reached like 92, 93,000, I think. And by the time people are hearing this, it may have even topped that. This is just really, really risky, speculative behavior, but it shows that people have that appetite for risk, and especially for the cryptocurrencies, because Trump courted them. And I wouldn't be surprised if, as he makes all of these announcements of who's going to run which bureau and which government agency, if there is something in there for crypto, which gives it even more legitimacy. And I mean, this is really what the crypto guys wanted.
Yeah, well, I think as important as those stories are, maybe the most important one, Dogecoin. Dogecoin, a meme cryptocurrency boosted by Elon, what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Um, this week, well, last week it was worth uh, 36 cents, about 17 cents before the election. It's now worth 40 cents. And apparently it is now worth more than $60 billion, which makes it bigger than Ford, Delta Airlines, and General Mills. This is
Well,
basically a coin with a puppy on it,
right. I wouldn't.
with a Malamute on it, that it was just basically a penny fun Bitcoin. And now it's worth more than General Mills.
I mean, I would hesitate to say it's worth more than General Mills or more than Ford. This is something speculative that is driven purely by Musk. And when he talks about it, it goes up. Trump literally named, and you know that Musk named this thing, the government, the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. Doge went up 25%, a meme coin that doesn't have any value as a currency, simply on how they named this government agency that Musk will run with Vivek Ramaswamy. That's crazy. That's beyond speculative investing.
Yeah, but it's always crazy. You've always said it's just crazy. It's sheer insanity.
Right. And again, people say, gosh, you wouldn't recommend it at 14 cents and now it's 39 cents. You were wrong. Yeah, I was. But I still stand by the fact that this is not where you want to put your, I don't know, retirement savings or college funds or whatever, just because what goes up that fast can come down. Now, there is a huge market for some of this crypto stuff, but you just have to understand, narrow it down. I mean, maybe Bitcoin, maybe Ethereum, and I track this stuff closely and there is an excitement around it. I get it. But you just also have to be careful as far as taking some profits, because you never know where these things are going to go. Dogecoin went up to about 60 cents a coin during the whole run up to Musk on SNL, and then it went down to about 10 cents. So if you bought on that run up near the top, you lost, like, I don't know, 5/6 of your value.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money, potentially. So just know that these things are very crazy.
Well, you're a public figure. I mean, they're always happy to tell you when you're wrong, but you don't get a lot of apologies later on to say that you were right. And
no, and I get it.
If there ever there was a bubble, this is a tulip mania. This is it.
Well, and what happens to Dogecoin? What happens to Bitcoin? What happens to Tesla stock if Musk and Trump begin to feud, or if the relationship frays? I mean, there's still 2 months before Trump even retakes office. And so there's a lot that could go on between two alpha males who love being the big presence in the room and taking all the energy. And so while this is entertaining to watch, we don't really know where it goes from here.
Yeah, it's like taking two pieces of plutonium and putting them next to each other.
Very
Yeah,
good.
we'll see. NVIDIA, okay, the darling, I guess next Thursday, the 20th, it announces its quarterly earnings again. And there's some feeling that it may actually predict that it's going to be a little soft for the next quarter. And the response to that was, well, you should buy it anyway because it's going to go. It actually went up on that expectation when a bunch of industry analysts suggest, it's okay if Nvidia has kind of a slightly weakened quarter. It needs to do that right now. I mean, when they're expecting fairly bad news and your stock still goes up, that says something about the company. Uh, I don't. There still doesn't seem to be anything to stop them, though. The Supreme Court uh, on Wednesday seemed to keep alive a class action suit dating back to 2018, before all this happened, accusing NVIDIA of misleading investors about how much it depended upon cryptocurrency mining. And the Supreme Court seems to be willing to let it go ahead. The lawyer for NVIDIA said, I don't even know why we have this in front of you, but apparently both all the parties of the Supreme Court, liberal and conservative, seem to agree this should go on. Any thoughts on that? There's also another one, another high court case that's coming up about Cambridge Analytica and Meta. So it seems like the big seven are going to be busy in court for a while here.
Well, they may. Remember, part of the reason tech stocks are moving so much higher is the thought that there will be less regulation on them and less government oversight under a Trump administration. And so you have Tesla, speaking of companies facing a lot of lawsuits, soaring and not even thinking of lawsuits anymore. NVIDIA now, quite as you and I speak right now, quite a bit ahead of Apple as the most valuable company. They've really gotten up to about $3.6 trillion, maybe even higher. And so these companies are saying, hey, we may not have Lena Khan and the FTC to push us around anymore. We may have a weakened SEC. And that is something that Trump has talked about in order to court these billionaires and these tech companies. And so, again, it's early. We don't know. But I think that the thoughts or concerns about legal issues are on the back burner right now. And everyone's just thinking, let's build, let's grow, let's make people wealthy.
Well, let's see. I mean, it's interesting that one company in the AI boom has suffered terribly, and that's Supermicro. What an interesting company. I mean, they're the guys that are, putting the chips into computers and everything else and servers. And they, as we talked about, 3 weeks ago, Ernst & Young resigned as their auditor, and it's just been downhill ever since. Their shares have fallen 27% this year, which erases all the gains that they've made from the AI boom. And now it's getting even worse. It looks like they may be delisted from NASDAQ if they don't submit a plan to regain compliance by November 16th. That's not a lot of time. Company said in a press release last week that it intends to take all necessary steps to achieve compliance with the NASDAQ continued listing requirements as soon as possible. What the hell happened at this company? Do we even know yet?
We don't know all the details, but when your giant accounting firm flees, that's a bad sign. This was a company that 7 months ago was trading at $120 a share post-split. It's now at $18 a share, literally 120 to 18 for a company that's no fly-by-night. They've been around for a long time. They've been successful for a long time. They got this AI boost, which, watch what you ask for, right? Because everything soared, everybody got rich, and then they lost what looks like somewhere around 80-85% of their share value within 7 months. That's a staggering drop for a company worth that much money. And it looks like there was, massive accounting. Yeah, well, right. Again, the accountant left. And so they lost all their gains and more. And that's too bad. That has nothing to do with AI. That has to do with books that just don't look right. And again, when your accountant leaves, there's usually something else going on as well. So we don't even know everything right now.
Yeah, there's got to be a giant class action suit coming soon. It's interesting, how companies can revitalize themselves if they, and the AI boom was a manna from heaven. I mean, look at NVIDIA. NVIDIA was a good company, but now it's a great company, and it's the richest company in history. Supermicro was also a mature company that all had this miracle rain down on them, and they just didn't seem to handle it. Which that's usually what happens with mature companies. It just says more about NVIDIA that you have a mature company that suddenly hits a boom. It usually loses its footing like Supermicro, but NVIDIA, they seem to remain humble about all this. They're not out there buying Super Bowl ads. They're not, you know, buying Ferraris out of Los Gatos Ferrari by the dozen. I mean, they seem to be being pretty cool about it. A, uh, a friend of mine's car broke down right in front of NVIDIA, and he was having to work on it right there. And he watched the employees coming and going, and he was astonished. I said, a bunch of bright kids, and he says, no, it's amazing how mature the NVIDIA employees are. These aren't kids. They realize what kind of miracle has occurred, and they're not going to blow it. It sounds like Supermicro got way ahead of their skis and couldn't handle it.
We'll find out eventually. We always do. But right, bottom line is there's smoke. E&Y left. And so there's likely fire somewhere. And people have been selling this like a fire sale for the last 6 months.
So does the Justice Department come in on this?
It may. We don't know what's wrong here other than something that scared away the accounting firm. So I don't know, but expect shareholder lawsuits, expect government oversight if that thing is in existence in 2 months.
Right.
There could be some dire consequences, but we do know that there have already been dire consequences for investors, both inside the company and those who invested on the outside.
Yeah. The owners will probably walk away just fine, but all those investors got seriously burned. Okay, finally, another election fallout. Social media site BlueSky, which I think had 14 million or 13 million. It's basically a Twitter X competition. It had 13 million registered total users at the end of October. Well, now they've just gained 1 million users, 2 million users in the last 2 weeks, and 1 million users in the last week. People bailing out of X, partly because of its owner, and partly because former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey has endorsed it. So, and it opened last February. It was an invitation only at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So just since February, it is up to 15 million, 2 million of which in the last 2 weeks, and we know why. Certain people do not want to be associated with Twitter or X or Elon Musk.
Right. And that's the price you pay for, backing that candidate. I think, I've been on BlueSky since the early days, and there wasn't much movement. And now you see a little more movement. 15 million is still a fraction of what X has, or
I was going to say, you need a certain critical mass to make.
And I don't know if it's there yet. It's hard to tell. The pin action you get from a tweet, from a post on X is still going to be more usually than BlueSky. But, a lot of people with big followings in one have now developed big followings in the other. And it's always, there have been several times since Musk took Twitter over that people have said, oh, now we got to go to this other site, whether it was Threads or Mastodon. Now BlueSky is hot. And it's hard to sustain that heat when there are so many choices. But it's always interesting for me, both as a user of social media, but as someone who covers this, to sort of check it out. And I must say, I'm seeing more pin action over on BlueSky than I have in the past. But does it last? It didn't last on Mastodon. Threads has been up and down and up and down. There's still a ton of people over on Twitter. But again, this has been a week of a lot of people shifting and claiming, I'm leaving this site. We'll see if they stay away and if the numbers bear out.
Well, some of them are big media and Hollywood people. So when
Right.
they move millions of followers. So that should be interesting. Is this just another election bump that just like the stock market, where, people angry, they make their move, and then later on they realize that it's hard to walk away from, a site that has hundreds of millions of users for a site that has 15 million, and they kind of quietly come back. I mean,
Right. It's
I remember Neil Young, what was it, Spotify?
right.
I'm out of there. And he's back. So, I mean, is that going to happen here again?
I don't know. The easy answer is no, these are always temporary things. But then again, if you think about it, they're not always temporary. Remember all the sites that were hot before Facebook, and people were skeptical about Facebook and then Instagram. And gosh, there are all these other choices. And a lot of those choices went away. People aren't really rocking MySpace much anymore, or Tribe, just to name a couple. And now Facebook. And remember when Facebook was faced with all these problems? Oh, we're going to boycott Facebook. Everyone's going to get rid of that. And yet it has still grown and grown and grown. So it works both ways. Sometimes you can squash the competition. Other times you're just too big to be squashed. And in the case of Twitter, it may be too big to be squashed. The question is, how conservative and right-wing is it going to get? And I think that's why some people are leaving. But if it becomes the place where you still have to post as, say, a journalist or a famous person, you'll come back. But we're in that maybe transition period. But we've seen these maybe transitions before, and most of the time they don't stick, but sometimes they do.
Yeah, I actually like reading X and seeing a wide array of opinions across the political spectrum, and and a lot of clever writing. So, we'll see. As always with this stuff, we'll see. Okay, well, that's it for now, folks. You can find us on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. You can see Scott on Facebook and X, and of course, almost every weeknight on NBC Bay Area. And you can hear me regularly on the BBC radio show Business Matters. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Rain's coming to Silicon Valley. It's about time. Take care.